welcome to Gazali. Today we're at the Children's Arts Studio, a creative space where we work with children so that they can explore and engage with the arts. Today we have with us Gitanjali Kerkar, also another person who nurtures imagination in children. Picasso once said that, every child is an artist, but it's so hard for us to stay artists as we grow up. And this is exactly what we do at the Children's Arts Studio here, where we really push children and adults to continue to express themselves freely. Gitanjali Kerkar here is a scientist who specializes in oncology research, but is also a children's book author. She's published 2 books, Bookie in 2017 and Orange, which she's just published in 2024. So thank you so much, Gitanjali, for being with us today. I want to start to talk to you about, what is that sparked your passion for writing, and how did you decide from a scientist to then get into writing and become an author today?
I think there were multiple influences that created this passion for writing in me. To start with, I think being born in a family of such creative artists and doctors turned artists, I think art and creativity was always a part of growing up. And I think art is a form of storytelling. So that was the first bug that got into me. The second very influential thing that I can remember is this tradition I had with my grandfather. I wouldn't go to bed as a kid without hearing a story from him. And I think at one point we ran out of books, and he had this incredible ability to come up with new stories every day. One character that stays with me is Visraru Rambhat, which was a forgetful priest. And every day he would come up with a new story about this priest going out and always forgetting something, and that would be the core of the stories. So I think those two were the things that I started with. But then when it came to choosing a profession, because science was also a huge part of growing up, I remember having this small laboratory with my dad where we would dissect frogs, and he would teach me about the heart and all these amazing science concepts. So that's where I decided that I wanted to pursue science as a career. But I think storytelling kind of stayed with me always. And when I got busy with work, I would always be like scrolling through Instagram, looking with what my friends and family were doing back in Goa. And I saw that they always were involved in different activities towards making this world a better place. And that's where I asked myself, what can I do to have an impact in the community and how I could contribute? And that's when I remembered storytelling and decided that, with work, this is also something I can do, and writing stories for children just came naturally.
That's beautiful. I mean, I've read both the books and I thoroughly enjoyed both of them. Now, your first book, Bookie, sort of talks about the relationship of a fish with a cat called Bookie. And the second is about a fish called Orange, who's actually grey in color. In both your books, you kind of look at animals and attach human emotions to them. So what is your style of writing, and what are the themes that you kind of explore through your books?
I think for me, the number one thing when it comes to writing is I don't like being preachy. I think growing up, I've also read books where it always ended with this very rigid statement that you shouldn't do this and you should do this. And that never resonated with me. I think I always wanted to write in a way where I can inspire children to come up with their own conclusions. So keep the messaging more abstract instead of giving a very rigid messaging. So I think that is something I really like to write about. And also I like to write about topics that I feel personally connected to. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the subjects that you've explored in both the books?
I think they're 2 different subjects. So when I wrote Bookie, I can tell you how I thought about that story. I was going through the Panjim market with my aunt Harshada, and it was the monsoon season. And I was looking at really small baby fish being sold. And while I was having a conversation with her, I think the fact came up that in Goa, during the monsoon season, there's a fishing ban. And the idea behind the fishing ban is this is the time during which fish breed. So to just let them be, that's something that we do. But there are still fishing that's happening during that time, and that really impacted me. And I wondered why we as Goans cannot just take a pause for those few months and eat all the other things like vegetables and rice and dal. So Bookie is about like a story about a little cat who is born in a fish market eating fish and encounters her first monsoon season where her owner is a fisherwoman, and the fisherwoman stops going to the fish market and starts feeding this little cat just rice and vegetables. And she's like, this is new. Why am I not getting fish? And she goes on a journey into the ocean to find her own fish and realizes what's happening under the water, and then comes back and decides to eat vegetable and rice for the 2 months. So that was the idea behind Bookie. Yeah.
And what about Orange?
So Orange is something I feel personally, like I really connect with the character. So Orange is a story about a little gray fish that's born in a family of orange fish. And he continuously feels like he's different, and he goes through this very long journey of trying to change and trying to fit into the family. And I think that story stemmed from my personal journey, where as a kid, I remember being really shy and admiring children who were confident. And I think I really wanted to be like them. So when I first wrote Orange, it was a story again about a little fish that was gray in color who went on this journey and finally changed and fit in. But as I grew up, the story also evolved with me. And through my work journey, I realized that it's okay. And I want parents and children to understand that it's okay to be unique and to embrace their differences. And that's how the story also evolved, where the fish finally decides and realizes that it's okay being him and it's okay being different. And there are other strengths that could play a big role in happiness and confidence.
Wow, that's really nice. You spend a lot of time reading children's books as well. I mean, you used to, you said as a child, but also now. What are some of the authors and books that have inspired you?
Yeah, I think till today, children book are like the favorite books that I gravitate towards when I walk into a bookstore. And I think that's because I truly believe that children books are not just for children, but also for adults. So the three writers that I constantly gravitate towards are Oliver Jeffers, who has an amazing illustrating style and a very simple style of writing, yet packed with emotions. The second writer is Ruskin Bond, and who's based in Missouri right now. And he has this, again, beautiful ability to bring in imagination, nature, and connect human emotions. And then this American writer named Julia Donaldson, who has, again, a very wonderful writing style and also who writes with beautiful rhymes in her stories. So I think those are my three top writers right now.
So Bookie was published by BIM Publications, and Orange is now published by a much bigger national and internationally known sort of Perky Parrots. Your book is available in America as well, in India as well, and I think across Amazon as well. Yeah. So how do you feel about sort of the second book as well? Because you took some time to write this second book, and you illustrated your first book, and now this book has been illustrated by Yogita Chaudhary. So what was this journey like from the first book to the second? How do you see yourself grow?
I think when I wrote Bookie, I was really young. The world was really different. The way I thought was really different.
How old were you when you wrote Bookie?
I think I had just, when I actually wrote Bookie, it was a summer vacation when I was in the 5th standard, and I was bored out of my mind. And I went to my aunt saying, what can I do to pass my time? And she gave me some colors and a piece of paper and said, why don't you write something? But so when I wrote Bookie, again, I loved illustration too. And that time I used to draw first and then write the words, because I think I imagine things more than actually starting to write. But definitely when I wrote Orange, I had started working, and I had a proper 9-to-5 job where I was coming home completely exhausted, but I still really wanted to publish it. So I think I decided that this time I would work with an illustrator, because I was holding back with the story. I was waiting for such a long time. So Perky Parrots helped me connect with this amazing illustrator named Yogita Chaudhary, who's an engineer who gave up her engineering profession and became an illustrator. So we really connected on that aspect. And I think she does amazing. And when it comes to children books, illustrations play a huge part. And I think the way she can create these emotions in the eyes of these characters, I think I really connected with that. And working with her has been amazing.
Wow. So one of the things when I read your books, I think in both, for me, one of the main values that I took away was the value of empathy. I think that sort of reflects a lot in both your stories, where you really want the child or the reader to sort of, you know, be considerate towards the world around us, whether it's people or whether it's animals, you know. What are some of the other values, or, you know, how do you really think through this, that this is the kind of moral that you want your audience to take back?
I think this is something I would definitely give credit to my family. I think even for you and me, I think empathy is something our family has really pressed on. Even when we used to go on walks through a forest, I remember aunt saying, you know, just go smell a flower, be delicate with it. And I think that has really stayed with me. So I think that's one thing. If I have my children, or for any child in the world, I think empathy is a huge thing that I want them to be. And also kindness. I like to write stories where there is this understanding, this kindness, and also inclusivity. I think all these things play a huge role in my life, and that's something I want to pass on to children.
That's amazing. What is your next book like? Do you have any ideas of writing another one?
I think I come up with like most of my ideas just before bedtime, and that's when my phone has like a OneNote that's just constantly filled with ideas. So 2 topics that I really want to write about. First is a character. I'm really fascinated by crows. So I definitely want to, every time I would go to college, I would observe crows through the bus, through the ferry boat, and just see how they are present all the time. So I want to write a story about crows. And the second story that I really want to write about is flowers. Like, you know, all the women in our family are so passionate about gardening and about flowers. They're always telling us about flowers. So, and I see when I talk to children today that this disconnect between nature, and I want to bring that back. So those are the 2 topics I'm excited to write about.
Yeah. I mean, so Gitanjali also happens to be my cousin. And I just remember that when we were children, I think we spent a lot of time outdoors, you know, just hanging out with our pets or the beach and having those conversations, sometimes on a tree, sometimes on the beach, sometimes in the park. And today we sit here, you know, having this conversation with each other, and it really feels very refreshing. It also, I feel really proud of, you know, to see your journey from where you've come, sort of, you know, getting into science to then slowly shifting into sort of really taking this up seriously. It was not just a one-off book, and now you already have ideas to do so many things more. So congratulations on your second book, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I think one thing I want to say, I think we keep discussing that we are a lover of too many things.
Yeah.
And I think you shouldn't just stop by doing one thing. You can always explore. Even if you have a 9-to-5 job, if you're passionate about something, I think you should at least go and give it a try and do it. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's a great message.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
मॅडम सुगंध तर इतलो बरो येता जाणा.
थँक्यू.
टिफिना वांगडा त्यो न्यूट्रिशनाच्यो गुडयो दिवपाक विसरू नाका हा.
आता तो न्यूट्रिशनाच्यो गुळयो विसर.
कित्याक?
का या तांदळातूच सगळे न्यूट्रिशन मेळटले. पंचामृता फोर्टिफाईड राईस हातूंत आयर्न, झिंक, फॉलिक ऍसिड, व्हिटॅमिन ए, बी सारकेले 9 मिनरल्स आसात. तर हे झाले नाही निरोगी आणि सुवादीक. तर पुराय पौष्टिक आहारा खातीर
पंचामृता फोर्टिफाईड राईस
असल्यास पुरो.
पुराय पोषणा खातीर पंचामृता फोर्टिफाईड राईस. घराघरांनी पंचामृता.